Hi everyone, welcome back to my lab and today's video, which is going to be a review and demo of the Bobbi Brown Ultraviolet Eyeshadow Palette. Before we begin, if you're new to my channel, my name is Yori. Thank you for joining me for today's video. If you enjoyed this one, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and also subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Now without any further delay, let's go ahead and get into the video. I recently filmed my Sephora haul. It was the video prior to this one, and I asked if there were any items that you were particularly interested in, and the decision was unanimous for this little palette from Bobbi Brown. It is a limited edition eyeshadow palette that is exclusive to Sephora and it retails for $39. This is the palette I was wearing on my eyes in this video, and again today, this is the eye look that I will guide you through. I have used absolutely every shade in the palette. I've established my opinion and I'm ready to share that with you. The outer packaging is very typical for Bobbi Brown Cosmetics. It is just black outer packaging. On the back side, you do have the ingredients for the different formulas. There are 5 different finishes in this specific eyeshadow palette. It is made in the United States. The amount of product that you're getting in each shade is a little bit different depending on the finish, but on average it is about 2 grams per shade. So even though it is a very tiny palette, you are getting a good amount of product. For the packaging, you have this very beautiful like purple green shift with the palette. On the back side, you do have a label which gives you the different shade names and the amount of product that you're getting within each of them. As I mentioned, this palette is made in the United States. Interestingly enough, it does not state what the shelf life is on the particular palette. It doesn't have it on the palette itself or on the outer packaging. So for $39, this is the eyeshadow palette that you get. It is a very nice cardboard and plastic packaging hybrid, and you do have 8 different shades inside the palette. As I mentioned, those are 5 different finishes, and your finishes are going to be 3 matte shades, which are going to be the 3 shades here. You also have a metallic shadow, which is that deep purple. You have a shimmer wash shadow, and this one is called a sparkle eyeshadow, and those two they call chrome metal eyeshadows. So you have a variety of textures with this eyeshadow palette. I love the ratio of mattes and shimmers, especially because the mattes that they gave you are your absolute staples. You have a matte bone kind of color, a transition shade that actually pulls a little bit plummy when you apply it to the eye, and then your basic black, which may seem like a wasted shade, but it actually isn't, because these other shades layered on top of the black look absolutely stunning. What drew me to the palette initially is that this is so different for Bobbi Brown Cosmetics. Most of her line includes a lot of neutral eyeshadow palettes, and she has this one and one other, which is called the infrared eyeshadow palette. I've only seen these 2 palettes on one other channel on YouTube. Now I'm not saying there's not other reviews, I'm sure there are, but the one that I saw I think is by Michelle's Everyday Glamour. So I will go ahead and link her videos in the description box down below so you can check her out. I believe she reviewed both this palette and the infrared palette, and she gave them both very, very favorable reviews. I'm going to echo her sentiments. I've used this palette for a variety of looks now, and I love that you can dress it up or dress it down. With the different shimmer textures, you can definitely get a very bold, night appropriate kind of look, but you can definitely get something for daytime as well if you focus on these shades here, or even this one. This is the one that I have all over my lid right now, and you can see that if it were not for the pop of purple on the lower lash line, it may not look as bold of a shade. It's a really beautiful shimmer. You can layer it. I applied it completely dry to my eyelids today just to give you an idea of how the eyeshadows perform. Another interesting thing to note is that this metallic shade here, it can actually be blended out. If you apply it wet, it intensifies the metallic nature of the shadow. However, if you apply it dry, you can buff it out and apply it to the crease, and it's not going to highlight anything that you don't want highlighted. So it's actually a very, very versatile shade, and this is the one that I had all over my lid in the haul video itself. Now let me go ahead and walk you through this eye look so that you can see how the shades perform for yourself, and then I'll be back to give you my final thoughts. With a Fenty 210 blending brush, I'm going to apply the shade White Noise just underneath my brows and stopping right above where I'm going to fake my crease. With the same brush, I dipped lightly into higher ground, and I'm going to begin to apply that just below where I applied the White Noise shade. Next, I'm going to take an Esum S33 brush. This is a more pointed crease brush, and so I'm going to intensify the same shade into my crease. It's gonna make it look as if there's multiple shades there. It's gonna create a nice gradient. Now with the same brush, I'm going to dip into the black charcoal shade, and I'm just going to apply this to the outer third of my eye, blending it just slightly into the crease. Now I went in with a very light hand. I didn't want this to really look black, I just wanted it to enhance the gradient. Once I'm satisfied with the way that looks, I'm just going to take a card because I want sort of a sharp edge, and ordinarily I would do this with tape, but I've already done my face makeup, so I'm just using the original shade. And once I create that sharp edge, then I can go ahead and diffuse the edges just a little bit so it's not quite so harsh. Next, I'm going to take a Zoeva 240. This is a petite pencil brush, and I'm dipping into the shade Electric Plum, but I'm also going to spray my brush. The reason why I'm spraying my brush is because I'm going to apply the shade to the lower lash line. It is a metallic shade and it's pretty intense, and I don't want any fallout. And I'm just going to run that along the lower lash line. Now with the smaller end of a Huda Beauty concealer brush and my MAC Soft Ochre paint pot, I'm just going to roughly cut the crease. This isn't anything super precise. I just want to have a more damp base for the shade to adhere to because I'm going to go in with a glitter shade. Now MAC paint pots set down really fast, so I'm going to take a Fenty number 200 shader brush, and I'm going to use the shade Strange Magic, and basically I'm just going to cover everywhere I put the paint pot. I'm using this shade completely dry. Next, on my fingertip, I'm going to take the shade Violet Hour, and I'm just going to stamp towards the outer edge of my eye. Now I'm going to take the Esum S33 again and the shade Higher Ground, and I am just going to intensify the edges. I have to be a little bit careful because this is a natural hair brush, and sometimes it picks up the glitter particles and then it transfers them to where the matte shadows are applied, and that's not what I want. So I have to be a little bit careful. Taking a little bit of the black charcoal shade, I'm just going to tap to re-intensify the outer corner. Once I'm satisfied with the way that looks, I go in with the Fenty brush and the shade Higher Ground. Next, I'm taking an Esum T09 and the shade High Fidelity, and that's what I'm going to do to highlight my brow bone. Lastly, I'm going to take the same brush and the shade Twisted Violet, and that's what I'm going to use on the inner corner of my eye. Lastly, I'm going to take just a little bit of that White Noise shade on my Fenty blending brush, and I'm just going to buff the edges of the eyeshadow. This is the basis for the eyeshadow look. I do finish it off with the Rimmel Exaggerate. This is a nude eyeliner on the lower waterline, and I use the Marc Jacobs highliner in the shade Earthquake on the upper rim, and a little bit of mascara, and that's it. So I'm going to take care of that and be right back to show you the finished look. And this is a close-up of your finished eye look. Hopefully you enjoyed seeing the demo as to how I created this eye look. I think that my opinion is pretty evident in that I really like this palette. I'm so pleasantly surprised by it. It's something that I bought out of curiosity. Bobbi Brown is not a brand that I'm very familiar with. I don't own too much from the brand, but after trying this, I'm definitely curious to try more products from her line. I'm going to insert some clips so that you can see some swatches of the eyeshadow palette, as well as side by side with some palettes that you may feel have a similar color story. I don't have very many purple palettes. The ones that I have are the Natasha Denona Lila palette, the Natasha Denona Mini Lila palette, and the Jaclyn Hill Boss Bling palette. I'm not one that typically gravitates towards cool tones, and so this is something I'm experimenting with, and I've been super happy. I think the quality is amazing. The shadows last really well throughout the day, and if you apply them wet, it only intensifies the different colors. I've also tried these over glitter glues, and again, it just emphasizes the texture even more, but for today's look, I wanted to keep it simple. So again, I'm pleasantly surprised with how versatile the eyeshadow palette is. I'm really glad that I have a cool tone eyeshadow palette in my collection. I don't have too many of those. Being so warm toned, I'm a little bit afraid of wearing cool tones, but this is one way where I felt really comfortable, and I've loved every look that I got. I'm not surprised that this is the palette that you were most curious about, because it really stands out. Also, just as a final note, this palette is rated 4.25 stars on Sephora right now, and there are only 40 reviews, so not too many people have tried it just yet. Definitely has my stamp of approval. If you're attracted to the color story, or you just want to try Bobbi Brown, this is a really great place to start, and I highly recommend it. I'm very excited about the palette. So that's everything for my video. If you have any questions that I didn't answer, please make sure to leave those in the comment section down below, and I will be happy to answer them as best as I can. If you did enjoy my video or found it helpful, please don't forget, give me a big thumbs up. It really helps my channel. And if you haven't checked out my haul video, I definitely suggest you do so. Thank you again for joining me today. I hope you're having a lovely one, and I will see you again very soon on my next one. Bye-bye.